Hello everybody, video here for you today. This is the retro no-cap recap of The Curse of Oak Island Season 7, Episode 3, called The Eye of the Swamp. Originally aired November 19th, 2019. If you missed any of my recaps of previous and future episodes, there's a link to my Oak Island playlist in the upper right. Let's get into it. Previously, on The Curse of Oak Island, people have been looking for an incredible treasure for 229 years. Dr. Ian Spooner, who made his show debut on the previous episode, is in the war room to give further information on the samples he took from drilling cores from the swamp. His initial thoughts were that there wasn't enough organic matter for the swamp to be very old, and that it was likely open sea before being possibly manipulated into a swamp. After examining the samples in his lab, he estimates that the change from being seabed happened 300 to 400 years ago. Dr. Spooner says it's fascinating to him because it's not at all what he expected to find, and it's more complex, either due to the geology or manipulation by people. He highly doubts that it would have been triangular in shape naturally. Shown in this episode, but not before, is that Dr. Spooner and his team had already returned to the island to get more samples, including from the eye of the swamp. He probed the feature and hit rock along the perimeter. Dr. Spooner says this kind of circular feature is not what you would expect in this type of environment. It is defined by the vegetation all around it, but none inside it. He goes on to say something is going on there to cause that. According to the date on his laptop, this was filmed June 26, 2019. The Laginas give Dr. Spooner full access to the island to investigate further. The next day, Marty, Alex, Gary, and Steve arrive at the swamp to investigate the eye themselves. Narrator Robert Clotworthy says the eye and the area around it is referred to as the pond, something I did not remember from at least 2 previous watches of this season. In the upper right, you can see a cleared out area that has since been used for cast and crew parking as recently as season 11, and one of the Nolan outbuildings near their house. Gary has volunteered to get wet so he can probe the bottom and also metal detect it. His detector does go off right there in the first place he uses it. He says it is iron. Steve gets the exact GPS coordinates. At this point, he is plotting everything of interest on a layered map. Alex later says the rest of the island has been so dug up with people looking for treasure for over 200 years that it's hard to know the context of anything, but in the swamp, they are likely the first group to discover any man-made structure there. Gary goes around the raft to his right, our left, and also hits rock and detects metal in this spot. To make sure it's not a false detection, he leans to his right and stretches his arm to the right as far as he can and verifies there is no metal detection there. The metal seems to be only around the rocks. Continuing around, he encounters a big rock with a flat side. Marty points out that all of the Nolan cross boulders have a flat side. He's approximately where the Tree of Life's mercy point would be. Gary also describes it as being cone-shaped, another trait of the Nolan's cross boulders. Marty mentions the eye of the swamp possibly meant to be the all-seeing eye, and Mr. Clotworthy gives us the history of it. Its roots, as representative of a divine power, dates back to ancient Egypt. Combined with the pyramid, the symbol was adopted by the Knights Templar and Freemasons. And in 1935, it was added to the design of the $1 bill by U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, also a Freemason, and on the island as part of a searcher group in 1909. Marty has gotten enough probable cause to say we have to drain this puppy. In the war room, Steve displays the Gary finds on his laptop that has the date of July 18, 2019. The red circle is the conical flat side boulder, and is the only rock he didn't get a metal detect hit near. The Eye of the Swamp has stayed consistent over the years. This is an aerial view from the 1920s, the 1940s, the 1980s, and 2019. Rick reveals that they do have a draining permit, but not a digging permit. Ideally, they'd like to search the entire swamp, but to try to make it easier, they will focus on these 3 locations: the ship-shaped seismic anomaly, the paved area, and the Eye of the Swamp. The excavation company the team has sought help from suggests using 16-foot dig boxes to keep slush and hopefully most of the water out. They can also be stacked on top of one another to provide more depth. Alex, Peter, and Charles travel to St. Mary's University in Halifax to get the assistance of Dr. Krista Brousseau and the scanning electron microscope to get more information on the swages that Carmen Legg identified as such and said they could date back to medieval times. She files below the rust and gets a good sample. Unfortunately, she can only say it's pre-1840 due to the absence of manganese. I do not recall if the team laser ablated the swages, which can reveal the mine the iron was taken from and narrow down the date. Choice Drilling begins the first borehole in the upper beach area of Smith's Cove just east of the cave-in pit. The area is long thought to have caved in due to there being a tunnel under it. Terry notices a burnt smell of the core from the 95-foot level, and then Paul Troutman finds a piece of dynamite wrapping in the same core. They also find a tube Terry suspects the dynamite was inside. In 1897 and 1898, the Oak Island Treasure Company Searcher Group used dynamite to try to block the flood tunnel from Smith's Cove. They drilled 5 boreholes and set off dynamite in each of them. Not only did that not work, but it also caused water to boil up and out of the money pit. The operation did reveal the high probability that the flood tunnel is very near one of those boreholes. Rick adds later that the water in the money pit boiled for hours. They will drill more boreholes in an attempt to locate the flood tunnel. I'll be continuing retro no-cap recaps of seasons 7 and 8 during the summer and fall. All of the other episodes are already done and are in my Oak Island playlist. I'm also doing retro no-cap recaps of seasons 1 through 4 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Season 5 recaps are all done and are in that Skinwalker Ranch playlist. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Sempre avanti.